Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Book Review blog. I am your book reviewer, and today we're going to review the book Pontius Pilate by Paul Maier. I'll give you a little heads up. I am a Christian, and I'm very happy to be one. And when it gets to around this time of year of Holy Week, and I hear about all of the story of Jesus entering Jerusalem and having dinner with or Last Supper with his disciples, and then being arrested, tried, killed. I always like the part where he's before Pilate, and because in the Bible, that's kind of the first time that you hear of Pontius Pilate, and you don't know much about him outside of the Bible, and so the author of this book, Dr. Paul Maier, he is a university professor from West Michigan University. He teaches archaeology and kind of other religious matters. And he has visited Jerusalem on many occasions, and he's done DVDs like that, and he's done book tours, and he's written many, many books. And I had the opportunity to see him a couple of times at my church where he talked about different biblical aspects. And one of the times that I was there, I noticed that he had this book, and I bought it from him. And I thought that now, being Holy Week, would be a good time to read it. So, yay. It starts with Pontius Pilate as not a middle-aged man, but he's in his mid-30s, having recently finished his military requirements for being a Roman citizen, and he's moved up very highly in the military, where he's able to now be a governor, and he is put by Caesar Tiberius in charge of governing Judea. And if you are aware of the book I, Claudius, that was a book and then a miniseries, I'm trying to get through that now myself, you will find a lot of names that are familiar, like Tiberius, Caesar Augustus, Livia, Augustus's wife, Drusus, the list goes on and on that are put in this book, which I thought was kind of nice, as a good tie-in between the two of them. And But Pilate, again, goes to Judea, and at the beginning of the book, he's single, but he is dating a woman named Kula, who is in her late teens. I think she's about 17 or 18 when they eventually do get married, and so she goes to Judea with him. And they have kind of a nice early life there. His predecessor of governor of Judea has told Pilate, well, these are nice people. They're kind of weird because instead of worshiping, many gods like us Romans do, where they worship Jupiter and Juno and other things like that, they just worship one god. And so far they're not troublesome, but just kind of watch out for them. And Pilate's like, okay. So one of the things that he notices very early in his career is that whereas in Rome, Rome doesn't really care about what they do with their water. They take multiple baths a day, and they just kind of lounge around in it. And but Jews, they hold their water very graciously because they don't have as much as they did in Rome, and they're saving their rainwater in like buckets to use later for bathing and for other things like that. And so what Pilate does is he develops an aqueduct in Judea for them, and so they can have enough water to survive with, which is a good thing that he did. And again, that's one of the highlights, and it kind of goes on and on. One of the things about this book is that it's historical fiction. It's things that may have happened, but yet we don't know, again, because unfortunately just not a lot about Pontius Pilate has been written. But I imagine that this is what Paul Maier thinks probably happened or may have happened, just for entertainment and also for informational purposes. But again, he lives in Judea for a little bit, and then he starts kind of hearing about a crazy man who they're like, well, he's this John the Baptizer, and he goes around and baptizes people and proclaims that the Messiah is coming. That he is not the Messiah, but that the Messiah, that he's a gateway to the Messiah. And this gets the Jews, the high priests, kind of rabble, because they know that a Messiah is coming that will, kind of kick them out and reign over them. And so the chief priest, whose head is named Joseph Caiaphas, at the time, is saying, okay, this guy's kind of nuts, just kind of watch out for him. And Pilate's like, okay, but Pilate isn't really bothered by him. And then John the Baptist says something about the current head of Judea, who's King Herod, but King Herod Antipas. And he says it about his new wife, who was originally his sister-in-law or something, but then his brother died, and this girl is now his wife, and so this girl's daughter, Salome, is now his stepdaughter. And there was a time when it's Herod's birthday, and Salome does a dance for him, and Herod says, you can have anything you want, and being Salome is influenced by her mother to ask for the head of John the Baptist on a platter, because, again, John the Baptist basically called Salome's mother a whore and said that what they were doing is wrong, because Herod is marrying his brother's wife, which, according to Judea law, is illegal. And Pilate is there at Herod's birthday, and he sees what's going on, and he's very bothered by it, and especially when the servant or whoever brings the platter that has John the Baptist's head on it in dinner. And this is part of the reason why, according to this book, why Herod and Pilate are enemies. And so then he leaves Herod for a little bit, and then kind of lives life on as it goes. And then he hears about a even kind of crazier man that the Jews are surrounded by the Jews, where it's a Galilean, and like this man's name is Jesus, or Yeshua, they use his Hebrew name, and a lot, and he's like, oh, he's raising people from the dead, and he's performing these miracles, and he's claiming that he's gonna be the king of the Jews. And so they were like, this is he claims to be the Messiah, but he's not the Messiah according to the high priests. And then Pilate again is like, okay, I noticed that this is happening. It doesn't affect me, but again, he kind of agrees with that he's a little crazy, but he's harmless. And then what happens that we're used to in the Bible starts to happen, where Jesus does the Last Supper, and he is being arrested by the high priests and being tried, and the high priests find him guilty. And so on Good Friday, Pilate's day starts off with a lot of trials, where in the first trial that he deals with are the two thieves who, if you're familiar, stand next to or crucified next to Jesus. And I thought that was kind of nice that he brought that part into the story. And he also tries Barabbas, maybe not that day, but very soon before. And then he tries Jesus. And again, if you're familiar with the story, he tries him the first time, and he's like, I see nothing wrong with this man. And then he realizes that Jesus is from Galilee, and he's like, why are you sending him to me? Send him to Herod. and then he gets sent to Herod and brought back. And so Pilate is very kind of bothered and annoyed that they've brought him back, because, again, he's like, I find no fault with this man. He's really, again, he's just kind of crazy. And his wife, Kula, has a dream, and she sends messages to Pilate going, do not have anything to do with this man, which Pilate kind of sends off as kind of crazy herself, and like, I can't be bothered by this. I have this big matter to deal with. And it shows in this book that Pilate is being kind of really pressurized by these people who are being led by the chief priests, who are saying, crucify him for Jesus. And then they bring up that Pilate, if he doesn't do this, then he could be punished by Caesar Tiberius. And so that kind of gets Pilate to say, you know what, I'm done. If you want him crucified, go ahead. I, wash my hands of this. And so he's being led away. And then, but right away, Pilate kind of starts to regret his decision, where he knows that that Jesus was innocent, but he let him go anyway. And then as the day progresses, he starts to receive weird things that, okay, it's the day before the Sabbath, so we've got to hurry this along. Can we break their legs? Okay, fine, go break their legs. And so, and as you know in the story, Jesus' legs aren't broken because he's already dead. And then they're like, okay, we need, the chief priests are like, we're afraid that the disciples are going to go and get him through the night. Can we have guards that come and guard his tomb? And Pilate's like, fine. And so then the next day is the Sabbath day. Nothing really happens. And then Easter happens, and all of a sudden now people are like, Jesus is not there. They come to Pilate and say, Jesus isn't there. And Pilate's like, what do you mean he's not there? He should be in there. And they're like, nope, he's not. And so, and then Pilate kind of, this part I found funny. Pilate kind of starts to think of reasons why Jesus is not in the tomb other than he rose from the dead. He's like, well, yes, the disciples came and took him, but then that's slowly gotten away. And then I think one of the funniest ways that he thinks why Jesus isn't there is because Jesus didn't die. When he was at the cross, he kind of like looked like he was dying, and he summoned the guy who was supposed to break his legs, and they're like, well, did you break Jesus' legs? They're like, no. Why not? Well, he wasn't dead, or he was already dead. And, well, how did you know he was already dead? Well, we shoved the spear in his side, and when it came out, then water and blood came out, and that's how he's dead. Okay, well, how far up did you shove the spear? Oh, about a foot. So it's like, okay, that hit his lungs, that hit his heart. Okay, he died. And again, you have to read it because it's just very funny. And then he really again starts to regret his decision, and it's really weighed down on him. And eventually he's sick of Judea because of this, and he wants to be sent back to Rome. And he eventually gets back to Rome, and Tiberius then has died, and now Caligula, Tiberius's heir, is now Caesar. And one of the things that when Pilate was supposed to come to Rome, Tiberius wanted to see him to kind of punish him for what he did in Judea and all the trials that he had to do. But en route from where Pilate was in Judea and en route to Rome, that's where Tiberius died. And Caligula again becomes Caesar, and Caligula's like, you know what, I knew that this happened, but I don't really care about it, and so Pilate is kind of off the hook, and so he just kind of lives off the rest of his life, and that's where the book ends. And I liked the book. I recommend it for those who are Christians and those who aren't. If you want to hear about the story and just learn about, or get kind of entertained by what may have happened and what might have happened. Excuse me. The next book that I'm going to read is also kind of a history biography book. It's called The Reagan Diaries, the diaries of Ronald Reagan during his presidency. And that's it. And I bid you all farewell and happy reading.